All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to be providing a quick overview of the optional computer standards review opportunity. And in addition to that, this is a re-recording based off of some technical glitches we had in the information session that we offered about 2 weeks ago. Anyhow, getting started. First and foremost, I'll have Cameron go ahead and switch screens. First and foremost, just giving a little bit of an update, but also historical background of the Oregon Optional Computer Science Standards. So as many of you know, if you are watching this video, Oregon revealed the Computer Science Implementation Plan back in December of 2023. There was an attempt for legislative funding during the long session of 2025 as well through Senate Bill 541. Unfortunately, that did not pass Ways and Means. However, internally, Oregon Department of Education is continuing to support computer science education. It is just being redistributed across several teams. There is ongoing statewide organizations that are finding mechanisms to support equitable education across our state for computer science as well. And just a little heads up and context that will be relevant for this optional computer science standards review process. ODE is offering a computer science, or pardon me, ODE is offering a draft of, restate that. ODE is drafting a common template that all content standards will actually use. So that will include this optional K-10 plus computer science standards draft. So moving to the next slide. One thing that I want to just really elevate in calling out for computer science standards is that there were two different places in the computer science education plan that the recommendation was to create some optional standards. The first was in outcome 4 and also within strategy 4.2. That really focused on CTE knowledge and skills statements and adopting K-12 content standards that integrate equity, cultural responsive computer science education throughout grade levels. So one way we're doing that is through this optional computer science standards creation. You can switch sides. All right, I'm going to pass this over to Jeff Rhodes, who will give us a little bit of a background on the timeline.
Thank you, Adrian. And for those of you that I've not had a chance to meet yet, my name is Jeff Rhodes. I am a career and technical education specialist here at the Department of Education, overseeing arts, information, communication, and I'm one of those team members here at the agency that Adrian mentioned that is kind of collectively helping to support and move forward work in the field of computer science education. So I'd just like to take a brief moment to update or kind of bring some context to the timeline of what has brought us to this point in regards to the optional computer science standards development work. As Adrian mentioned, back in December of 23, our agency released the Computer Science Implementation Plan, which was included Strategy 4.2 around developing optional computer science standards for our state. In July and August of 2024, our agency hosted 3 engagement sessions, which included partners from both secondary education, post-secondary education, and industry to help provide feedback and input and guidance of information that we could use to develop our first draft of our optional CS standards. Over the last year, from September 2024 to September 2025, the work was spread out due to a little bit of adjustments and position reallocation here at the agency, but we were able to take the feedback that was given to us back in July and August of 2024 and use that over the last year to develop our initial draft of our optional computer science standards, which brings us to today, in which we are now ready to present that draft standard for public input for anybody residing in Oregon to help provide feedback input and suggestions on our initial draft for us to consider in potential revision as we work towards adopting a final version of our optional computer science standards. So on the next slide here, we'll talk a little bit about what our agency was able to glean from that time and that input from our partners during those review sessions. As I had mentioned before, this involved computer science teachers and educators in our state, not just at the secondary level, but K-12 level, as well as post-secondary and industry partners who are engaged and centered in the work of computer science education. We were advised to utilize a basis and foundation of national frameworks for our standards and make sure that we are aligning with what were considered evolving needs. In computer science, the rapid change of technology, they felt like we needed to have standards that were nimble and could pivot to help make sure that we were focused on future needs as well as the current state of computer science. They requested that we emphasize preparing students for the next steps, be that post-secondary education or entry into workforce, as well as addressing safety and equity specifically around artificial intelligence and the rise of new technology involving AI and its implications in the educational setting. They did want to make sure that we were considering the range of school teacher readiness we have in our state. And that's where we led to the emphasis of integration, especially at the K through 8th grade level. How can we help teachers to integrate computer science concepts and knowledge and skill sets within what is already being taught, and not asking for an additional lift or burden on our teachers at the K through 8 level. And then for the secondary level, the recommendation was to focus primarily on foundational standards, knowing that teachers at the secondary level who specialize in computer science have many different tracks in individualization when it comes to topics at the advanced level, and that the key really within our computer science implementation plan was increasing access to that foundational level and being able to build a foundation for all students potentially in our state. So on the next slide, we will discuss a little bit about how we took those learnings from the engagement and put them into the design of our first draft of computer science standards that have been released for review. So one of the things that is key is that these are optional. They will be for district, school, and individual educator determination on how they would be implemented and used. But we very much kept in mind the flexibility of knowing that this would look different in different regions, in different districts, and emphasizing the need for that ability for teachers to be able to integrate them in different ways that are going to be best fit for that local district, school, and regional need. We did, based on the feedback that we wanted them to be kind of rooted in a national framework, the foundational draft that we have is kind of laid out with the framework of the National Computer Science Teachers Association standards that released their second draft back in October. We divided I shouldn't say we divided, but we created and organized our standards into 5 domains, including algorithms, programming, data analysis, computing systems and security, as well as computing in society, which looks at the overall usage of computer science and emphasizes the understanding of ethics when it comes to the use of technology and computer science. And then lastly, we designed our standards to be arranged in grade bands, including K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and finally 9 through 12 high school level grade band. One of the things that we are asked, what we'll talk about here on this next slide, is how will educators gain support around implementation? So within the standard draft document that you'll have a chance to review, you will see additional sections around each standard that include key content that help to simplify and clarify the scope of what the standard is, define terminology and vocabulary to make sure that it's a little bit more easily digestible, especially for those that don't have expertise in computer science. Ways to create a bridge between standards from grade to grade and within instruction to make sure that the basis of what is being taught at the standards in the grade below help lead to a smooth transition to the next grade and the inclusion of those standards. The supplements to the standards. So rather than just creating a litany of additional standards, we found ways to kind of emphasize and take certain standards and be able to supplement them in different directions based on the depth that local districts and teachers and regions decide they want to explore specific standards. And then in addition to this draft guidance, ODE is in the planning stages for future supports and guidance, including integration with other content areas, connections to computational thinking at all levels, K through 12, guidance support and connections to AI education, and then sequencing across grade levels to once again be able to build and have that foundational framework within a individual district for students to have consistent exposure to computer science integrated within their experience K through 12. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the impacts of having optional computer science standards here in Oregon. We get a lot of questions around the idea of these being optional and what do we hope that these standards could potentially achieve to help to encourage districts to implement or explore how they could integrate computer science standards within their current curriculum. So a couple of impacts that these standards and having these standards adopted will do is it'll give us a foundation and a basis to hopefully start considering conversations with the Higher Education Coordinating Commission around our educator preparation programs and how we are training teachers to be classroom ready by giving them more pedagogy and the ability to have a more strength of the knowledge of computer science and techniques and the ability to consider how this can be integrated in all core content subjects. This helps to create support for potential curriculum adoption in the future and allowing us to build supplemental learning resources and materials that can be shared to help schools with the idea of starting the integration and the adoption of computer science education in their districts. As we talked about, unfortunately, we didn't see the passing of Senate Bill 541, but that doesn't mean that we don't believe leaders in our state will continue to pursue educational advancements in computer science. And by having these optional computer science standards, as we move forward with some of those initiatives, this will give us a head start in the potential for adopting further computer science requirements and standards down the road. The ultimate goal of our computer science implementation plan is equitable access to computer science. And so one of the best ways to ensure that all students in our state are potentially being able to have access to computer science is by being able to provide standards for teachers to integrate within their classroom opportunities. Many other areas in our state, including STEM and other content areas, rely heavily on computer science. And so by having these standards, it helps us to elevate not just computer science, but STEM education, STEAM education, science and math, and all other areas that have interconnection with computer science. And then for our secondary teachers, especially in the world of career and technical education that are currently supporting computer science programs of study, by starting to build foundational support for computer science at the K-8 level, it helps with the trajectory of being able to integrate students and have students exposed to computer science before the high school level to help them when it comes to their opportunities to determine that educational journey and pursue career and technical education at the 9 through 12 level. All right, so this next slide, after some of that context and information around what you'll be seeing in the optional computer science standards, we just want to share a little bit about providing feedback for us. As you will see at the bottom of this slide, we have created a feedback form for residents of our state to provide us their thoughts, suggestions, and guidance around how we can take this draft standard and strengthen it before we fully adopt it. There are a couple options you can consider when looking at the standards. There are quite a bit, and it is quite a long document. So depending on the view that you are providing, we are happy if you just wanted to select one or possibly more grade bands to examine and just provide general feedback through the form that we have listed at the bottom in the link. In addition, we have created the opportunity, and we will share out, and we have access, I believe, on our computer science page here at the agency, access to both a PDF version and a Microsoft Word version of our computer science standards, in which you can provide comments or suggestions directly to, edits directly to, and then a section within our feedback form in which you can upload those documents directly to us with your suggestions and feedback throughout. And once again, how you decide to look at the document really is your decision based on the perspective you're coming from. If you would like to focus on elementary, middle, or high school, that's great. If you'd like to look at the entirety of our standards, that's wonderful as well. We appreciate all forms of feedback that you're willing to provide us around this potential draft that we have shared. And with that being said, our final slide here is just a reminder that we are here to help. We are hoping to have the review process completed by Friday, December 19th. Feel free to visit our ODE Computer Science Initiative webpage to get more information around our computer science implementation plan, as well as access to versions of these computer science draft standards. And then specific questions can be directed to our ODE email, ode.csinitiative@ode.oregon.gov. And I will turn it back to Adrian just to wrap us up for today.
Thank you all so much for taking a few minutes to watch this video. If you didn't have the chance to be present for the information session, if you have any questions, like Jeff mentioned, feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, we're honored that you may be interested in getting the opportunity to provide us some feedback during this review process. Hope you have a wonderful day. Cameron, would you go all the way back to the beginning? I'm going to re-record my 3 slides because it was very chunky, and that way you don't have to like cut and paste through them. So, good afternoon. Go ahead.
So sorry, Adrian. I was just curious if there's anything else you would need me to re-record, or if that.
No, you did great. You did great.
All right.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Adrienne Pierce. I am the Director for Well-Rounded Integrated and Digital Learning. Today we are just doing a quick overview of the optional computer science standards review opportunity. We had an information session meeting a couple weeks ago, and wanted to ensure that the discussion and slides that were provided are also here for you. First up, just a really brief overview of the state of where we're at and a bit of a background. So Oregon Optional Computer Science Standards, Oregon Optional Computer Science Standards was part of a discussion that came out of when Oregon revealed our computer science implementation plan back in December of 2023. There was historically an attempt after several through several bienniums for legislative funding, but in the 2025 biennium, there was a bill that was Senate Bill 541 that went all the way to Ways and Means, but unfortunately did not pass Ways and Means. The work of supporting computer science education, however, does not stop. Oregon Department of Education is continuing to distribute the support among several teams. In addition to that, we have statewide organizations that are continuing to find mechanisms to support equitable access to computer science across our state. And just a side note, Oregon Department of Education is also in the process of creating a common template for all content standards. So you'll note some potential shifts in design or structure of this optional K-10 computer science standards draft because it is in alignment to that common template. In addition to that, just calling out, like I mentioned, that in the computer science education plan, there were a couple different places that it was noted it would be helpful to have optional computer science standards. So one in outcome number 4. And then in addition to that, it also spoke into strategy 4.2, where it called out the adoption of K-12 content standards and CT knowledge and skills statements that really integrate equity and culturally responsive computer science education throughout grade levels. So in a moment, I will pass this over to Jeff, and he can introduce himself and talk a little bit about the timeline, as well as the intent, design, and process for reviewing these optional standards during this opportunity to gather feedback publicly. Perfect. Thank you.